Peter Parker Intern 2 Bruce Banner by 107th Infantry. Chapter 25. Dot dash dash dot dash dot dot dot. The elevator took Peter and Tony up to one of the highest floors. They stepped out onto an incredibly open lobby that looked onto the city. Sun filtered in through the windows, casting long lines of light onto the floor. Several glass doors led to various rooms, and Tony started walking toward one. "What's the meeting about, Mr. Stark?" Peter asked, trotting along to make up for Tony's longer stride. "Budget, maybe? Or renewable energy, something that Pepper said I needed to come to." Of course Mr. Stark didn't know what the meeting was about. Still, it was nice to get some natural light after working in the basement so much. The conference room they entered was glass. An expensive-looking wooden table was in the centre of it, with Pepper at the head of it. Chairs for assistants surrounded it, flush with the wall like those seen in governmental buildings. All the seats were filled except for one for Tony at the table and one for Peter on the wall. With a small wave to Pepper, Peter sat. For the next 20 minutes, the businessmen talked about new renewable energies and technologies. An older man was talking about textile strengths when Peter perked up. "Currently, we have no way to mass-produce an effective polymer to extract the oil spill which happened in the Pacific." "My apologies," said an older man. Pepper started cutting into him about wildlife, while Tony leaned back in his chair. Peter stuck a foot under it and tapped out "web" in Morse code. Tony, knowing Peter's super hearing, tapped under the table lightly. "Sure?" "Yes." "I do believe that we can develop a polymer that can resolve the spill. I will get it to you for testing as soon as possible," Tony interrupted. "Thank you, Tony," answered Pepper, too intelligent to ask where this tech had been for all the other oil spills. Peter smiled to himself. Then he glanced to his right. A personal assistant was staring at him. Damn it, he forgot they were all nerds here. Quickly, he typed a new message. "New." Then he added another message in an original Morse code that he came up with on the fly. "The quick fox jumped over the lazy dog." "Got it," came Tony's response in the new code. The assistant looked sufficiently confused. "Boring." "True." "Tony, what are your opinions developing a human genetics lab?" asked a female board member. "No," came Peter's soft tapping. "I have strong feelings against altering human genetics in any other way than preventing disease. There will be no attempts to develop genetically altered individuals or the studying of already modified people." "Thank you, Dr. Stark." By the end of the meeting, Peter and Mr. Stark were sending equations back and forth, having taken a few minutes to turn mathematical notations into Morse code. When everyone finally left, Pepper stayed back to walk with Tony and Peter. "At least you didn't fall asleep this time," she said to Tony. "Good to see you, Peter. How's your internship going?" "Very well. I don't think I'm cut out for board meetings, though." "You're just like Tony," she said, messing Peter's hair. "Have fun at the lab. I'll bring down some lunch in a few hours." "The lab?" Peter said excitedly. Tony nodded. "We might as well develop the web now. I'm sure everyone will be on my back about it by tonight. Are you ready to save some penguins?" The spill was next to Mexico. "And I'm sure there are some penguins there." Peter rolled his eyes as they walked back to the elevator, but Tony just chuckled in response. Chapter 26. He clicked. Tony's lab was, of course, stunning. The architecture was all sharp lines and light colours. A wall of windows allowed one to look over the city just like in the conference room. It was large, but each space had a purpose. It looked as if everything had a place as well, but it was hard to tell with several projects drawing all the tools towards them. An Iron Man suit that stood at the far end, and a few Black Widow-shaped grenades were the largest of the projects currently. "Are you going to come in or just stand there?" Mr. Stark asked. It seemed that Peter had frozen in the doorway to stare. "Oops." "This is really cool, Mr. Stark," said Peter as he began walking over to the chemistry area where Tony was waiting. "Thanks. Pepper had a team design the layout. I must admit that it is helpful when I'm working on one project at a time. Unfortunately, that's never the case, Tony smiled fondly. But let's get started on that web. What are the specs for your regular stuff? Oh, it'll take me a few minutes to draw it up. I think a good starting point would be the stuff I use when it's raining. I can get a drone to run and get your notes. Where do you keep them, kid? I swear, if you say online, we're going to have a serious talk about internet security. Nah, too dangerous. I keep it all up here, Peter tapped his head. I'll put it down if you think it's secure, though. Petey, how many formulas do you have for the webs? 46 bases currently, but I make alterations depending on the mission. Tony just stood there for a moment. Yes, he knew the kid was smart. He went to that fancy school and he made his web formula, but it was just dawning on him that this wasn't just MIT smart. Other people didn't come up with Morse code and debate maths answers using it. He felt a little less alone. He knew it was dumb, really. He had access to the smartest of every field with just a phone call. He had an advantage in his intelligence, but that didn't change the fact that he had tried to drink it away for years. This kid hadn't gone down that path. Mr. Stark, are you listening? I think I'll add some sawdust or similar cheap material to offset the cost. Maybe you can get it as a waste from a factory you own. Sounds good, Peter. I'll go work on my suit while you draw up the original formula. Use paper and we'll burn it at the end. You got it. Then, Tony did something that he shouldn't have. He hacked Bruce's system. It shouldn't have mattered to him if the spider had boosted Peter's intelligence, but somehow it did. With Peter in the same room, Tony looked at the results of the experiment with the bugs he had planted the day he had gone down there as Iron Man. Why risk removing them if no one would find out, and you weren't going to use them? Spider Trials N equals 500. Background research. Oscorp results. Human trial N equals 1. He clicked. Hi, I hope you enjoy the podfic. If you do, please consider subscribing as I try to upload at least twice a week. This includes the rest of the chapters of this fic. It really makes my day. Have a lovely day.